Hello, guys. Welcome to Brazen. You are in for one hell of an episode. I have one of the most inspiring and brilliant and biggest amazing voices on social media right now with me. Lauren of Love is here. I was talking to her before we pressed record that her content is such fucking fire. And I love the way that she teaches. I love how vulnerable she is. I just love her energy. So, she is here, and as many of you know, she is a self-healing guide and a mentor for spiritual entrepreneurs. She is so packed full of wisdom. I'm actually looking at your Wealthy Woman bundle before we started talking today. I was like, I'm gonna get that.
Girl.
Very excited. I just really, really love everything that you stand for and everything that you move with your clients through. So thank you for being here. I'm very excited to chat. And Lauren, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Oh my gosh. I mean, how do I follow that up? That was so lovely. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, so hi everybody. What's up? I'm Lauren. I have been an entrepreneur since 2015 full time, which feels I'm coming on my 10-year anniversary, which is pretty wild. Like things go by really fast. It's really amazing. My business behind the scenes is a beautiful team of four. I live in Connecticut with my two dogs and my husband in the country, and I love it. And yeah, a little fact about me, I'm on the plant medicine path. So behind the scenes of being a business service provider, social media person, I'm just really deep in my prayer with plant medicine study in this lifetime, which is super cool. So yeah, what's up? So happy to be here, honored and excited, and I can't wait to see what we dive into today, Heather. So pumped.
Yes, me too. I also just realized that you live out in the country when you said that with your husband and your two dogs. That's my life as well. So very stoked
Mm.
for that. We were
Hey
saying
girl,
before,
hey.
yeah, like how the hell did we not connect before? I have no idea.
Did you ever live in the city? Was that ever a thing for you?
We are actually the most in the city that we've ever been right now. So,
Wow.
I would say, what are we at now? 7 years ago? 7 years ago, I went through one of the biggest dark night of the soul moments, on my journey. I ended up getting a divorce, which meant that I had to leave my children because they weren't my biological children. And I also cut off contact and went no contact with my biological mother. And
Wow.
then not long after that, my grandfather, who I was really close with, he was basically like a father to me. He passed.
Oh
So
my
it
God.
was just a lot of grief, a lot of loss. And when that happened, part of my journey was going on solo road trips around the country to clear my head and
Oh.
just be with my own thoughts and be with myself to figure out what that meant for me. And I ended up moving or setting the goal to move to the mountains of Tennessee because those mountains were calling so hard. I was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
take me here. And I met a dude before I moved. And it was one of those moments too where like every I saw him a few times and when I did, I could feel that pull, that magnetism. But I was
Yeah,
also doing a lot of numbing with alcohol and work at the
sure.
time. So I didn't feel those tugs as much as I could have. And so when we moved to Tennessee, we lived in the mountains and it was in the country. We moved here to Wisconsin, and it is the most in city we've ever lived. And here in 4 months, we're actually moving back to Iowa in the Des Moines area, out in the country by a
Wow.
lake, and it's going to be gorgeous. So it's been
Wow.
a long journey, but a really great one. We loved being gypsies, but we're really
Yeah.
excited to put roots down.
I really appreciate your connection to nature as you're describing all these like points in your timeline. Because for me personally, like I grew up in Long Island, which is it's a very unique vortex. If you've ever like heard of Long Islanders or like the energy, not in a good way. It's like a matrix of just,
Oh,
yeah, it's like people who it's almost like Long Island is this place where like you really want to make it and go live and work in the city and
oh,
Manhattan. So like it's this weird energy of like hungry for success. And so I grew up in that and ended up getting a really beautiful career in television news out of college. And I lived in the city and it was just, I think back, I'm like, I was crazy. Like that lifestyle is not for me. So I can totally appreciate the energy of Mother Earth, lakes, mountains. Sign me up. Sign me up.
oh, that's so interesting. So when you did get that job,
Mhm.
when you did step into that, was it that feeling of the chasing and pursuing success that really like led that moment to where you are now?
Yeah, so I grew up in an environment with all immigrant grandparents, right? All
Mm,
my grandparents were right off the boat. And the belief system that was really passed down to my parents, which was passed down to me,
mhm,
which is success is the most important thing in the world. You got to make a lot of money to provide, and you're going to have to work really hard to do it. And so I grew up in that environment and that belief system, and it really dictated my choices, right? I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to go into musical theater as a young kid. I wanted to be a performing arts major and just felt the pressure from my family to do things right. So what I ended up doing was getting a career in television news like my father. So I worked really hard, and I was that girl who signed up for all of the extra things to be like the grade A student, to get recognized by her mentors in the industry, and ended up getting a job at national level working for CBS right out of college. And that energy, like that industry of television news national, is just very masculine. It's very patriarchal driven. There's a lot of manipulation, a lot of abuse towards women. And so I had a lot of that in my environment, and kind of woke up to the fact that I was living for everybody else and wasn't living for myself. But I'm sure we'll
mhm.
get into those pieces today. But
Yeah,
yes, short answer, yes, chasing success to feel validated and recognized,
for sure.
100%.
Well, thank goodness for that catalyst because you're here. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and you are serving millions of people.
Mm.
It's incredible what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
And it's incredible that you did it as a self-healer. And from one self-healer to another one, like fucking high five. That
Thank
it's
you.
hard. And
It is
to
hard.
I will say one of the biggest pieces to the puzzle, and I'm curious to see if it was for you as well. One of the biggest pieces of the puzzle for me that was difficult to put together was finding the coaches, the mentors, the teachers, the guides, the healers that fit what I needed and building that really concrete foundational group that I could lean on, that community. Because
Mm.
it felt as though I was only needing one or maybe two because I didn't really have much direction there. And when I did, it was almost like overwhelm of all the things you needed to do and all the people you need to work with.
Mm.
So as a
Mm.
self healer, it was really important for me to find the right people to work with, the ones that really aligned with my values, that really overall that I could fucking connect with human to human, like heart to heart.
Yeah.
And that took a while. It took a little bit to create that nest of people for myself. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm blessed in the sense that just being in the industry for so long, I've seen a lot of women come to me on the back end of like previous experiences with other mentors, coaches, guides, etc. And I hear a lot of, like, I don't want to use this word, but like horror stories, just like really,
Yeah,
challenging things where space holders are not properly facilitating self-healing, or business coaches are trying to gatekeep or bypass or superficially tell people to just be positive without going into the deep work. So it's complex, but like what you're sharing, it brings up this really interesting point in me, which is like, as a self-healer who is also teaching self-healing, navigating the journey of being able to be vulnerable about where you're at while also trying to enhance your credibility to be able to feel worthy of helping others. I mean, that in and of itself is like a very complicated thing to handle. And I think what I've noticed too, just in my world of my mentors, my teachers, like I have a roster, man. Like I have a
yeah,
whole team of allies and support, and it's really important. But the thing that has been very fascinating for me, being somebody who dances on both sides of the fence of like self-healing and business, right? Because I
yeah,
teach and support for both. I noticed this very interesting pattern that like some of the most gifted mentors and teachers that I will probably have for the rest of my life are struggling so hard with money, right? And they're so good at what they do. They're so in this like inner work, psyche realm of understanding and unraveling inner traumas and stuff like that for others. But when it comes to themselves, they can't get past the money blocks and such. So I think it's like, just what's coming through on this is like, you need support for both things, right? You need support
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur and you need support as a human who's trying to heal. And then you need people who understand both sides of those spectrums that can kind of dance in the language of both archetypes of your life. So, yeah, so, but it happens, it does happen. And then it feels really good. And then you're like, I'm never letting these people go. I mean,
Yeah.
some of my clients, like I've worked with for years serving them, and it's when you get the right people, you keep them in your pocket, you know?
Yeah, and I love that you use the word archetype because that's really what I had to find as well is whatever if I tried to find one coach, one healer, one person to be the guide I needed at that time, it was never going to work because I hold too many different archetypes even before I knew
Mhm.
archetype work, even before I knew
Mhm.
the words of what I was naturally and innately having happen. I was trying to fit that archetype in a box with a mentor inside as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And I think that it really shifted for me before I want to say before we moved up to Wisconsin. We were still in Tennessee. So probably like 5.5 years ago is when it shifted hard because I was working with a coach. She actually went by healer. That was the word she used. That was her title. And I really loved that because she did so many different things. So I want to say healer. And I was working with her and she was so honest with me at one point. She was like, what you need is not something I can give you. I can give
Mm.
you all of this, but you're wanting all these other aspects. And to be honest, if I try to do that for you, I am self betraying at this point because it's not something
Mm.
that I am, we'll say she was not really holding inside of her business. And it was one of the most eye opening conversations I had ever had because going back to what you were saying as well, the vulnerability, having a healer look at me and be so honest and be so certain in her words and also then be like, I also have a list, Heather. Like, I have a list of women
Mhm.
and men you
Mhm.
can work with if you'd like. It was so opening to me, heart opening, mind opening, because it was how I lived, but I hadn't received it as much at
Mm.
that point. And when I received that type of support and that type of guidance, it allowed me to start filling up all of those spots for the different archetypes of who I was. There was this wild woman, and I needed somebody to come in and be like, sit down, sit the fuck down. And then there was the business aspect part of me. My first jump into entrepreneurship, I had no fucking idea what I was doing, not
Yeah,
a
no,
damn
nobody
clue.
does.
Nobody. And that's my first business coach. She was like, "Well, you're in good company because not a single one of us know. We're all just hoping we figure it out."
True. Yeah,
So,
it's
thank
true.
you for spotlighting the word archetype because I think that was really important.
Yeah, and like kudos to your mentor and guide at the time, because I
Yeah.
feel like that's like when we can be humble, like there's a lot of teaching and entrepreneurship around like leadership and empowerment, but I think being humble and having humility is actually great medicine and provides a ton of abundance as well. So we don't always have to be holding this superficiality of like I know everything, I have everything, I am everything, I can do everything. What do you need, right? Like it's just
Right.
oh, how exhausting. My gosh, like I can't
Yeah.
imagine. So yeah, beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, let's go right into one of the bigger topics we were discussing
Sure.
before. It really aligns with this too. The disempowering perspectives and limitations of building a business or healing in the masculine energy, especially when it's on overdrive. Where do you
Mm.
sit with that? What's your journey been like with that?
Oh, girl, well, where do you want to go with this one? This is like this is like all of reality. And like I don't know what your relationship is with like spirituality or consciousness or study. Okay.
Very into the woo. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, like right now, I feel like we are all kind of waking up as a collective to the realization that the ideologies and paradigms that we were once operating in are not sustainable and they're not really serving our needs for fulfillment, for joy, and for happiness. So, like, just like my childhood is an example, there are thousands of people who can relate where they grew up in conditioned belief systems that your job, your 401k, how many weeks vacation you got, and what status and title role you had was the most important thing in the world. And what ends up happening, a lot of entrepreneurs don't really grasp it until they're kind of in the thick of it, going through their dark nights of entrepreneurship, is that your business is a self-healer. It's a spiritual game in a sense. And so what happens is that anything that is not serving you or isn't in alignment or is not in right relationship with love or is unintegrated childhood trauma, it's going to manifest through the lens of your business. And your job is to interact with that and understand it and then heal it, right? And that's really the journey to success. It's like unpacking all those things. So unpacking for me, I mean, there were many layers of this around visibility and vulnerability and trust and money relationship. But I think the biggest piece was the worthiness that we tie to how busy we are, what the numerical data of our success is, whether that's our bank account or our number of followers, right?
Yeah.
And I realized, like, on my journey, again, 10 years, about year 5, I was at a point in my business where we were generating about $700,000 a year, just for context. And my schedule was booked and I was empty, right?
Mm.
I had no fulfillment. I had no joy. I felt like I was driving towards milestones that were not actually doing it for me, right? They weren't actually bringing me what I wanted. And so that was when on my timeline, I actually took a year-long sabbatical. I went to Sedona, Arizona for a year, and I said, I got to work on my shit because if this is happening at $700,000 a year, there's no way I'm going to be able to create the freedom that I really want because this is not freedom. This is not freedom. And so,
Mm.
this is one perspective of like masculine energy shows up in the drive we have to continuously achieve and continuously get and continuously succeed. And really where that comes from, obviously as childhood, but it's like the roots of masculine energy are around achieving outcomes and providing, right? And so this wound comes up, and now in this world that we are living in, we are like, wait a minute, hold on, like it's more important to like feel joyful in the human experience than it is to have an outcome that you won't be able to take with you when you die anyway. So yeah, there's just one piece of it we can certainly unpack, but it has been huge, right? Like it shows up everywhere. And I think rewiring this aspect of our businesses is really where we can come into peace,
Mhm.
regulate our nervous systems, and create a hell of a lot more abundance than any masculine energy could provide.
Well, and absolutely, 1,000%. And I feel like if you're able to find your personal balance and understand that that's going to have its ebbs and flows as well, like
Mhm.
knowing that if you're in all of that hustle, hustle, go, go, go energy the whole time, I was there. Like I was there before entrepreneurship, working,
Mhm.
going back to the most recent new book of my journey was about 7 years ago, and right before I moved, I was working 90 hours a week. I was working 3 different
Yeah.
jobs because I wanted those numbers, because I wanted that feeling of success, because I wanted to numb. And, you know, learning my own personal balance and learning how to feel safe resting, how to feel safe integrating, realizing, you're not going to get very far in entrepreneurship if you are running your business through your traumas and through the lens
Mhm.
of lack. And there wasn't much comparison. Being in the online space for me with women, it was a lot of fear. I was always fearful that someone was going to criticize or bully or something. There's never really been comparison or anything like that. It's just been like fear or, oh my gosh, how can I not be seen? Like you said, visibility.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I truly believe I'll always be learning quite a bit about my own personal balance with the masculine and the feminine, the rest, the receive, the go, and the create as well. Because a lot of my masculine energy, and I'm sure with your incredible fucking content as well,
Mhm.
like I create all this in the most beautiful feminine energy. And I also have so much drive that I put behind my content and intention as
Mhm.
well. So finding how to balance that, back to your point as well, on top of doing the self healing,
Mhm.
there was a time in the beginning of my journey, I had no idea how to release it from my body. I knew how to rage release because I had been screaming down by the creek since I was a little girl. Like I knew how to get shit out of my body. I did not know the importance while on an entrepreneurship journey because the first couple of years are like self-improvement and self-development on fucking crack. Like you're
Mhm.
just like going the whole time.
Mhm.
And it was a really, really amazing journey when it started. And like I said, I think I'll always be learning a little bit about it. Every time I speak to another entrepreneur, they light something else up inside of me that's been
Mhm.
sitting dormant. A remembering turns on within me. So
Yeah, and I think to clarify too, like just to share in like my relationship with feminine energy and masculine energy, I don't necessarily think I mean sometimes there's this approach to like feminine energy is equated to like rest and relaxation, right? And slowing down, and masculine energy is really compared to having a lot of drive and having a lot of energy. But what I've realized is like some of the most feminine aspects of my creative process are the times where I'm creating and 6 hours go by and I'm like, where did the time go? Right. And so it's
yeah,
not necessarily about the amount of energy that we're putting into things or how much time we're spending. From my perspective, I feel like feminine energy is when you're doing the things in your business that feel good and trusting that the things that you are doing that feel good will lead you to outcomes. Whereas in the masculine approach, it's I'm going to strategically try to do the thing that's going to get me the outcome that I want, right? And that's just a different approach. It's like following your intuition and what creatively feels really inspiring to you and trusting that that will provide. Because from the feminine perspective, what's more important is that what you're doing is more joyful and who you are being is more joyful. So like in the beginning of my business, I would Google, I don't know if you did this, maybe you did, but like I would go on YouTube and be like, what's the quickest way to like 10,000 followers, and I would just like search for the solutions of everything. But what I realized, and especially in this season where we've grown so immensely on our social media platforms, it's like when you're creating what feels good and what you're excited to share, people will feel good reading it and will be excited to read it. And that's just what's been continuously showing up for me. So I don't know. Yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
I dig that. I I love that you were very honest about Googling things too, because I feel like that's honestly what I end up talking to most clients about. Most of my students, they're like, "Well, I'm
Yeah.
not sure how to do it." I'm like, "Baby, I have Googled my whole life. Like I have researched things my whole time." And with real quick on that, and then I would love to go a little bit more into that $700,000
Yeah.
business that
Oh,
you burned
let's talk
down.
about, yeah, yeah.
And I love that you went into like the masculine and feminine, because for me, I had pushed away feminine energy in really deep personal ways. A lot of mother wounds existed as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I did not know how to rest. I didn't want to rest. I didn't want to, and I didn't know that if I never slowed down, I'm never going to receive. I'm never going to have anything land. I'm never going to be able
Yeah.
to integrate. So the beginning of my coaching business, putting it online, I had made myself a huge promise and a huge commitment that I was going to make sure that everything that I did was not just full of intention, of course, but full of, if it's uncomfortable for me to not have a list and a strategy and all this stuff, then I'm feeling good about it and not upset about it. Like I created my signature program was created in my kitchen, and it was the only flow I could get into at the time that felt right. And I had resisted it for so long because I was like, I don't think this is how you're supposed to make these. I'm cooking dinner and I'm dancing in my kitchen and I have a notebook and a laptop, and then as soon as I started doing, I'm like, this is exactly how the fuck I'm supposed to be
Yes.
doing this. And
Yes.
it
Mm-hmm.
took it took a long time for me to be able to do that and enjoy the process, and then go and meditate, then go and listen to a guided meditation, or just go
Mm-hmm.
fucking nap. Like
Mm-hmm.
it took so much to say that's enough for today. I
Yes.
don't need to do more. So I just wanted to say thank you for touching on that, and tell me all about what it felt like to burn that to the ground because you wanted more alignment. Was that the most terrifying thing?
Girl, story time for you. Holy shit. It's so funny. I thought the hardest part of my business journey would be like the first year. Because in
Mhm.
the first year, you're going through that like roller coaster of like, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? I remember like I'd be so confident that I was building this like multi-million dollar empire. And then like 2 hours later, my husband would come into the room and I'd be in like full breakdown, like Indeed.com on my website. Like, I'm just gonna get this corporate job. I'm gonna just go back. It was terrifying. So I thought that would be the hardest thing. So a little bit about my journey, right? Like I came from a lot of trauma in my life, like many people who are in this line of work, providing service and helping others. And I woke up, my wake up, everybody has a wake up, you know. This was like around 2012, and I had realized that a lot of the unprocessed trauma I was navigating around sexual trauma and suicide attempts for my teenage years because of that experience was just like, holding me back. I wasn't living for myself. And so that's where my personal and spiritual development journey kind of started, was in this like my grandfather died. I woke up, I was like, oh my God, I have all this trauma. Like I need to heal myself. So anyway, in changing my own life, much like many people who do this work, I knew that I wanted to be able to provide that lesson to others. And so that was where I started to get that calling of, whoa, Lauren, you're changing and your life is shifting. You should maybe start a blog and maybe talk about this online. And what's a Facebook Live? Like that wasn't a thing back then. But anyway, so I started my business in that focus of helping others. But because I generated business success so quickly, I started to attract a lot of people who wanted to know about entrepreneurship.
Mm.
And slowly my mission changed from being in that heart-centered space to doing what was going to make me a lot of money really quick. And so all of these personal development desires that I had started to really fall to the wayside, and money became the most important thing. So I started to run programs, like I had a program called Six Figure Biz Babe, and like teaching people how to scale to these six figures. It was like this whole big thing. But like I mentioned before, I wasn't fulfilled because it was something I was good at, business. I'm a stellium Capricorn, okay? So like I will climb that mountain. I will get there.
Yeah.
I'll take you with me. I'll show you how. But at $700,000 a year, being unfulfilled, having this kind of wake up dark night experience, my chronic illness, this illness I had, I didn't know I had, started to come online. And so my hair started to fall out, and I was getting brain fog, and then I was in bed for 18 hours a day. And then worse, I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. I could no longer hold the grocery bags going to the grocery store. So there was this thing happening that was kind of a tornado of like all the money in the world, completely unfulfilled. And I also think I might be dying. Like it was all
Oh,
happening, like it was all happening at once, right? And so it's playful to laugh about now, because thank God I
yeah.
took a year off and I did tons of deep work. I sat with psychedelic medicine like every 4 weeks, got teachers, lived in Sedona for that year. And in that time, it's like what ends up happening for a lot of people is when you're waking up to who you truly are and you're developing an awareness that much of what you believe to be true about yourself was other people's stories, right? From there, you're like, well, who am I? And what do I want? And that was kind of this moment where I was like, I don't want to build Business Babe. That was the name of my company at the time. I don't want to be this like edgy, masculine, like show you how to make a bunch of money type of person. That's not me. That's who I thought I was, but that's not me. And so I remember this very specific moment. I was getting acupuncture and in Sedona, and this trippy. Have you ever been to Sedona?
I have. It's actually where my retreat, my in-person retreat is at this
Okay.
fall.
Okay. Well, girl, if you need recommendations, having lived
Yes,
there,
please.
yeah, it's amazing. But I was getting this acupuncture session, and this weird song came on that was from my Catholic upbringing, and I thought this was so bizarre. And in that experience, I was like, I just wish my business would die. Like I literally like wanted it to just go away, because here I was in this kind of pause moment and I had to make a choice, and I was so terrified. I had an employee team of six, right? I was making bank. Like to say no to that, that was the hardest year of my business, right? To walk, it's one thing to wonder whether or not your business is going to work. it's an entirely different thing to say this is working and I'm gonna burn it all to the ground. So I walked
Yeah.
out of that acupuncture appointment after having this deep grief of like, please just take this away from me. And I open my phone and there's an email from my legal team. And the email says, hey, we got some bad news. The trademark that you had filed years ago for the name of this company has since been redirected to somebody else. And you have 90 days to cease and desist every single product that you have created for your company. And it was this moment of like, oh, holy shit. Like, I wanted this. I didn't want it. Now it's here. I feel bad. I called it in. What's going to happen? It was just this moment of like, wow. But what I ended up birthing from that shedding was more successful than anything I had ever created before. And I think that what's really important to remember for anybody who relates to the story in any which way, knowing that if there's any particular time in your life where something is burning and the ashes are all flying all over the place and the tower is crumbling and you're like, shit, like celebrate it a little bit because
Yeah.
there's a phoenix rising coming on the other side. And it was truly, it was one of the most profound decision-making moments of my career. And that was about 5 years ago. And yeah, it's amazing what happens when you say no to things because even though they're working, they're not, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So you got to trust that intuition.
Oh, I fucking love you.
Oh,
I
good.
really adore you.
Thank you.
It's really incredible to me how all of this works because as you were talking about, saying what it is that you wanted and putting it out there so God, source, universe could hear it and it could show up
Mhm.
for you. It's so funny because I've been calling in an expander to help me with a little new archetype. So, hello, hi. Every
Hi.
time you say something, I'm like, she's literally fucking perfect. She's exactly what I've been looking
Nah,
for.
girl, no.
For me, perfect for the role that I'm looking for.
Perfect. Take
Yes.
take whatever you see. That's great. And there's also all this other stuff because we're all human,
Oh,
right?
girl,
We're all
that's
human. It's so we got to embrace that side of ourselves and be like, yeah, I'm messy. I mess up. I cry. I'm writing a book right now and it's pretty sassy and like I'm owning these parts of myself and I'm just like, yeah, like we fuck up. Like that's
yeah,
part of the human experience. So thank you. And also, yeah, just
yeah.
keeping that in mind.
Oh, I am probably one of the most human coaches that you'll meet, to
Mm.
be very honest. I just did another episode recently with one of my team members, and we went this past December down to Florida, and it was the first time we had met in person. And
Yeah.
I had told her during the episode, I was like, I just thought I was gonna be too fucking human for you. Cause like I'm gonna fart, I'm gonna burp, like I'm gonna be a human, I'm gonna laugh
Mm.
with you, cry with you. Like I'm not going to not have the human experience because my goals in life are to enjoy. And so when we went there and she was like, you're real human, I was like, I know. I'm a very aware. So I appreciate that. And I
Yeah.
really do though. I feel like you really are fitting in just in the same way that you received that email after you asked. I have recently said I'm looking for this type of mentor, this type of expander.
Mhm.
Girl,
Mhm.
you fit all of them, the parameters. So I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
I'm excited to. I'm not going to purchase your course. I'll be honest. I'm not going to do it for a while because I made myself another promise that I'm going to go through all my course graveyard before I purchase anything else. I
Ah,
have
your
4 in
course.
there.
You have four in there. Oh my God. Are
Mhm.
they all business focused or is there like
No,
other? Okay,
no,
good. Nice,
they're
well-rounded.
yeah, they're smaller, they're a bit shorter. They're like anywhere between 2 weeks and some of them are a few months.
Yeah.
And I've started them, but I told myself I went to go purchase the Wealthy Woman bundle from you before we even
Mhm.
started the podcast episode today. And I was like, no, 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 we already made a promise. No more purchasing
Mm.
for a while. So I'm excited to
Mhm.
dive into that because after reading through all of them, and I'd love for you to talk about the Heal program, the Wild Wealthy Feminine Method, and then the Conscious Creator Mastermind. But on top of those three, on top of those three, that Wealthy Woman bundle that you have available looks incredible.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Will you
Yeah.
tell myself and all the listeners about what you have available?
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny because I'm a projector by human design, which is a very interesting mix, right? Because I don't know if you know anything about human design, but
Yeah.
like the projector archetype. I'm a 6'2" self-projected projector. So the idea to most people is that I'm not supposed to work a lot. Like that's like what you tell people you need a lot of rest. You're a projector, you got to rest a lot. But like Taylor Swift's a projector and that girl's producing albums like every fucking week. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's entirely true. But what I've found is that my one of my values in entrepreneurship is accessibility. And I
Mm.
think it's really important for me to provide resources at all different levels and at all different aspects of intensity, right? So you want to sit down for 6 hours or you got 30 minutes, there should be something accessible to you to grow and improve. So for me, my business and the way we operate is that we have digital courses. I have a membership. I have high level mastermind, one-on-one containers, and then I also have group coaching programs. And that diversity, I feel like just creates really healthy energy in my space to feel in alignment with my work. So the Wealthy Woman Bundle is a combination of courses that I've created over time that take some of the more challenging masculine aspects of entrepreneurship and
Mm.
bring in a more feminine approach. So, for example, Instagram, right?
Mm.
Our Instagram over the last year has gone from, I think, like 20,000 people to 200,000, which has been really amazing. And it's all been
Congratulations.
organic. Thank you. No ads, no boost. I think I did one boost for $100 just to try it. And I was
Yeah.
like, this shit doesn't do anything.
It
It
doesn't.
doesn't do anything. So I've really figured out this organic method of marketing, and I feel like it's really important to develop a spiritual relationship with your content and with your relationship to Instagram specifically, because what a lot of people don't realize is they're like projecting all their wounds into every time they turn on the phone and then they see shit that annoys them or
Yeah.
activates them or frustrates them. And so it's an aspect of that combined with content creation. I have a really great digital course called Know Your Niche, which is all about how to know what to create for your content. And I don't believe in niche the way that other people do. So I turned that on its head. And then there's a course called Spiritual Sales, which for me is selling in alignment. And I've really been blessed with developing a really solid sales technique that doesn't make me feel like I'm manipulating people, but also is really effective. So I share that in my course as well. And then there are a bunch of other courses out there on laurenoflove.com. But um, yeah, it's like for me, I feel like there's so many, for any entrepreneur out there, there's so many facets of your work that are like micro pieces of
Hmm.
important leverage. And so what I've done is taken those pieces and created programs or digital courses for them. And it's been really powerful to do. So yeah,
Yeah.
when the time is right, if you ever feel called, for
Yeah.
sure. And if not, that's totally fine too. I think yeah, sometimes sales tactics are like, get it now and like, hurry up. And if you don't do this, you're not growing enough. But no.
Gross. Yeah, gross. That's real
Yeah,
gross.
no. No. So yeah, that's that.
I I love your dog. What's your dog's name?
Thank you. This is Blue.
Oh, Blue, you're so
Yeah.
sweet.
This is Blue. She's named after the blue heron that
Oh,
I connected with at this lake by my house. So yeah, nature mama, I relate. But yeah, she's super needy when I'm on my podcast sometimes. She's like, I
yeah.
want to sit here and be with you. We'll just let her do her thing.
I love it. Well, my old man George is right outside the door, and he
Oh,
sometimes comes in because he's the same. If he can hear my voice but can't see me, because he's losing his sight and his hearing as well.
oh, what
But
kind of dog is he?
he's a Cocker Spaniel. He's
Oh.
so sweet. I let him in sometimes, but he's been on a whining streak. The last podcast, he came and joined us. He just sat there and whined the whole time. I was like, okay,
Oh
well,
my
you can come in later.
God.
I did want to touch though on what you said about when you are making sure that you are accessible to everyone. This is just like a personal opinion. I just want to ask, like me to
Mhm.
you, because I have gotten the ick a lot in entrepreneurship, which is fine. Like some shit is just not my shit. Some things I'm very
Mm,
magnetized to, like any other human. But the idea that is of the let's raise your prices every month. Let's scale, scale, scale.
mm,
That's always been so ick to me.
mhm.
And the reason is because I look back and still continue to and did then. I look at all the versions of myself that I have been. I look at all of the women that are in my community. And I know that there's times where there's no fucking way I would have purchased a program for even $20, but I knew
Hmm.
I needed it, knew I
Yeah.
wanted it. And the idea of always raising prices to make money without that accessibility, without having the heart in it,
Hmm.
it's just always felt ick to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if you've ever gotten pissed off at the random increase in price of a carton of eggs or
Right.
the gas station when we're in a recession. I mean, like it's funny because like we as consumers don't like this. So why do we think it's okay to do it? It's very mind-blowing to me. So I'm very blessed. So my business, like I mentioned, we have a team, and my husband very early on, he said just raising prices is not a business strategy, and it's
No.
not a sustainable one. It's not an integrity one at that either. Accessibility for me, like one of the things I've noticed as my business is like we're really in a season of exponential growth. That's just what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And it's been really incredible. Um, but accessibility does not mean that everybody has access to you, right?
Mhm.
It means that you have offerings that allow you to be accessible to some, and then you create things to be accessible to other people, right?
Yeah.
And so I just feel like that's really important to mention. And it was just coming up for me as we were talking. I was like, I have to
Yeah.
clarify that for people. But yes, I agree. I had one time, this is a funny one. One time I was in like the comparison story of feeling like I was really behind, where all these other women are like, I just made $40,000 this morning and I'm in the bath, and this was
Yeah.
like maybe, 7 years ago, and I was so pissed. And I remember I got on a call with a woman, and I said, this is what's going on in my business. I'm thinking of hiring you. I've heard really great things, and I just want to, like, kind of know what your perspective is. And
Yeah.
she took a look at my business and she said, you need to change your ideal client because you need to raise your prices, and none of these people would pay for higher price tickets. And you need to abandon them essentially to go find the people who will charge you, who will be able to receive a $20,000, $40,000, $50,000 investment from you. And like, that's what you should be selling. And I remember feeling like a whole fuck no in my body, because my community, just like you said, is very important to me, right? I know what it's like to pinch pennies. I know what it's like to not know if you're going to be able to pay your rent next month, right? Like, I know those feelings. And to think that the solution to my, desired success would be to abandon the people that I care about, like that was just not in the cards for me. And you see it now, like I think there's this thing happening on social media now where it's like mystery offers, like people will put out, yeah, it's so weird. It's like, just send me $800, and like you don't know what this is, but you're gonna
What?
love it. Yeah, it's a very popular thing in the social media
I
space.
have not seen that.
Yeah, it's an interesting, they don't tell you what it is. They're like, the mystery offer is out, come buy it, and then people buy it because it's like preying on the game of like how people are addicted to lottery, right? And so then there's also that other side. Yeah, it's really manipulative. There's this other side of it too, where it's like the price for this offering is $200, but it's going to be 300 on Tuesday, and then it's going to be 500 the next day and 500 the next day, and just keeps increasing. And it's also leveraging on people's wounds around like trying to get the coupon and the nearest sale and this and that. So I understand that there's a need to create leverage in the industry and to create um, time sensitive need to invest in something. But I feel like we can do those things in integrity, and we can do them in a healthy way where we're not manipulating people. But unfortunately, that is something that happens. And I do agree with you. It's not cool. Not cool.
No, it is a full body fuck no.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm glad that you feel that way. I really am, because there were times on my journey, especially again in the beginning of the online space, um, fucking finding my voice, figuring out all of that is the like
Mhm.
big first steps. And as I was doing it, working and touching base with different coaches and mentors, hearing advice and even having coaching sessions that were very similar to what you just said, I felt like I was doing it wrong. Like I was like, I'm for sure gonna
Mhm.
fail then because I'm not gonna fucking do that. Like
Yeah.
I do early bird prices and things like that, things that feel good.
Sure, sure.
And it just never felt like that was the right way to do it. But like you said, then I would be watching things and they'd be like, well, I just made $50,000 this month. And I'm like, I must be fucking it up because I'm
Mm.
not doing that. And it took a while for me to know, like it was a knowing that I was doing it right in my heart, but my monkey mind was like, no, you're not, bitch. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Because look at what you're not receiving. And it was a pivotal moment for me to take a stand for myself and for my business. I recently actually had someone that offered their services to me, and it was a full body fuck no. There's a couple of them
Mm.
actually last year too, and they were like, hey, are you interested in doing this? I'm like, I appreciate you, but there's just absolutely no fucking way.
Mhm.
And it took a lot. Like I honestly, like the boundaries in business
Sure.
when it comes to how you build it foundationally, what your values are, and not just sticking to those, but sticking to those when things aren't working. Because like you can stick to that shit
Yeah.
all day long when it is working. It's when it's not working. And you're
Mhm.
like, everybody else has this, everybody else has that. And I'm just so grateful that you have that perspective and that you teach that way and that you are helping so many women in that way. And me as well. There's no maybe about it. Like that wealthy woman bundles mine and probably also the other three. I'm very stoked that there's women out there like you that are so powerful and that have such empires and that you're really creating the change that we need to see.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's just like at the end of the day, it's um yeah, I was like I wrote this 2 days ago in the book that I'm so proud of myself. I've always wanted to write a book. It's happening. It's
Yeah.
happening. But just this concept of like, you know, when we see somebody doing things in an inauthentic way to us, and we see them having a lot of success, we create associations. And so we're like,
Mm.
oh, well, in order to have success, I have to do it like her. And I can't get behind that. So therefore, I can't create success. And, you know, we wrap it around as like this one big statement, but they're not. And just because somebody's building something the way that isn't in alignment for you doesn't mean that you have to change your values or do things that feel out of integrity. It just means that the universe is showing you what's not for you. And that is a really beautiful lesson. It's like probably one of the greatest lessons we can receive as entrepreneurs is to know what is not in alignment for me.
That's spot on. So
That's
well
it.
said. So well said.
Thank you.
Huge congratulations on your book. What's your book
Thank
called?
you. Yeah, so this book that I'm writing, I'm very excited. It is called The World Needs Your Medicine, and the book is focused on helping women uncover the 11 legacy leaks. So we all have this journey to entrepreneurship, and then there are 11 different ways that entrepreneurs actually like leak their legacy and prevent themselves from being successful, whether that's money blocks, vulnerability blocks, and a lot more. So yeah, it goes through a process of helping you rewire those points of resistance so that you can actually be in your medicine and share your medicine and have an impact. So that's going to be coming out next year, which is really exciting. And yeah, super pumped. Like, yay for us doing this big
Yeah.
work. I like it.
I'm so stoked for you. What an incredible
Thank
thing. Well,
you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
It is remarkable the impact that you are making and the way that you're doing it from your heart. And
Mm.
I'm so in love with it. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Before I let you go for the day, there is a question I always like to ask, and
Yeah.
then we're going to end it together. I'm going to kind of include you on the way I always end my episodes as well. So for the question, what are you grateful for right now? What are you, and I don't, and as we
Mm.
both know, there's this piece of be grateful, be not that way. Like, what have you recently, like, did you look at a bird? Were you drinking your coffee and you looked outside? You're like, that's a cool looking fucking bird. Like, what are you grateful
Yeah.
for in that way?
Oh, I really like that perspective. That's such a good way. Yeah, it's like the simple things, you know, and like anchoring into that. Yeah, I think what's coming through for me in this season of my life, I know this sounds really kind of cheesy, but like I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I've been receiving to like catch myself in old stories. Like I feel like it's been really cool this season. I got back from Peru in December. I did like a really deep study, and on the other side, I'm like seeing these old stories and the way that they play out, and I'm like in a humble way about it, and I'm catching it. And so that I'm just that for me in my own personal perspective is just something that I'm really celebrating. I'm super, super grateful for this beautiful relationship I have with my husband, who's always serving and supporting and holding me when I'm in through that process of having deep initiations. And then, yeah, I got this owl on my property. Speaking of birds, super dope owl. Been
Love
really
that.
connecting to her and feeling her presence and her wisdom. So, yeah, really blessed that I get to live in nature and see so much of it on my property. So, yeah, to all the animals, very blessed.
I love that.
Yeah.
My fiance and I were just talking 2 nights ago. We were watching a documentary and there was owls on it, and I lost it. I was like, it's so beautiful. It shouldn't even be that beautiful.
They
I
are
don't know. I think it might have been the snow owl, the one that has like the beautiful like ring around the eyes that comes
snow
out almost like
owl.
eyeliner. Is it?
Hmm. Hmm.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful for you, my dear. I'm grateful
Thank
for
you.
all of you guys listening. I kind of forgot for a second we were talking to other people right now and there's listeners. I felt like we were just in a combo.
Okay.
Um, Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Lauren, for being here. And as
Yeah.
you guys know, one of the biggest pieces, the way that we always end this is I want you to go out and do something kind and nice for yourself. And I don't mean the everyday things. Every single time we talk about this, guys, within every episode, I hope it turns on a switch inside of you. It helps you have that holy shit light bulb moment. Like, yeah, you know what? I've been doing these small things for myself, and it's time that I really up level that. It's time that I spend a little bit more time. For me, it's been resting and meditating and allowing myself a lot more somatic releases instead of just working out all the damn time. That's been
Love
a big one
that.
for me. So I hope that you guys do the same. Do something today that really, really is kind and nice for yourself. And you guys know the drill. Last piece, do something kind and nice for others. Go out and find somebody that needs the smile, that needs the hug, that needs something that you can give them. Because if you
Mm,
are coming across someone in your life and they are in need and you're showing up and you have it to give and you don't, you are missing an opportunity. You are missing an opportunity to heal yourself, to grow, to have your heart fucking expand bigger than you ever knew. So
mm.
please do this. Please go out and brighten your day and brighten someone else's. And thank you, Lauren, for being here. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me. This was such a pleasure. And yeah, just congratulate yourself, everybody. You're showing up to learn and grow and expand, and that really matters. So I'm celebrating and I'm grateful for all of you. And thank you so much for having me, Heather. Such an honor to be
Absolutely.
here.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.